The bass thrummed through my chest like a second heartbeat as I pressed myself against the velvet rope separating the main floor from the VIP section of Enigma. The exclusive nightclub pulsed with bodies and money, the kind of place where a single bottle of champagne cost more than my monthly rent. A place I had absolutely no business being in. "You're stalling," Carolina hissed in my ear, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my forearm. The champagne on her breath made me want to pull away, but I couldn't afford to. Not when 3 months of rent hung in the balance. My law textbooks were being held hostage in my tiny apartment, along with the electricity bill I couldn't pay and the notice of eviction taped to my door. 23 years old, drowning in student debt, working double shifts at the campus cafe that barely covered food. This was supposed to be my path out of poverty. Instead, I was 1 semester away from dropping out. "I said I'd do it," I managed, my throat dry despite the vodka tonic sweating in my palm. The ice had long since melted, diluting the cheap alcohol to water. "I just need a minute." "You need 3,000 reais," Sophia chimed in from my other side, her voice carrying that particular cruelty of the casually wealthy. She and Carolina had been my roommates for 6 months, ever since I'd answered their ad for someone to split a 3-bedroom near the university. I should have known better. Girls who could afford that apartment didn't need a 3rd roommate. They wanted someone to look down on, someone exactly like me. The bet had been Sophia's idea, proposed over dinner at a restaurant where the cheapest entree cost more than I made in a day. "Kiss the scariest-looking man in the VIP section," she'd said, her eyes glittering with malice disguised as mischief. "Do it, and we'll cover your share of rent for 3 months. Don't do it, and you can pack your things by Monday." 3 months. Enough time to find a new place, or better yet, to pass my exams and land the legal internship I'd been interviewing for. Enough time to breathe. I looked through the frosted glass panels that separated the VIP area from the masses. The lighting was different there, softer, more golden, casting everyone in a warm glow that suggested money could buy even better skin. Men in expensive suits lounged on leather sofas, beautiful women draped over them like accessories. Bottles of premium liquor gleamed on mirrored tables. And in the far corner, partially obscured by a decorative column, sat a man who made everyone else in the room look like children playing dress-up. He was alone, which was the first unusual thing about him. Everyone in VIP seemed to travel in packs, but this man sat in solitary splendor. One ankle crossed over his knee in a pose of complete ease. His suit was black, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders that suggested he spent time doing more than sitting behind a desk. Dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved from granite, all sharp angles and hard lines. But it was his stillness that truly unsettled me. While everyone around him moved, laughed, performed their wealth, he simply existed. A predator so confident in his position at the top of the food chain that he didn't need to prove anything to anyone. "Him," Carolina said, following my gaze. "Perfect choice. He looks like he eats law students for breakfast." My stomach twisted. There has to be someone else. "You picked him, Fernanda. The scariest one. That was the deal." Sophia's smile was sharp. "Unless you're backing out? I can have the locks changed by tomorrow." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. These were my roommates, the girls I'd shared an apartment with for half a year, and they'd backed me into a corner with the same casual indifference they showed when deciding which handbag matched their outfit. I drained the watered-down vodka in one long swallow, the liquid courage burning down my throat. "I'll do it." The bouncer at the VIP rope knew Carolina and Sophia, of course. One flutter of their false eyelashes and we were being ushered through like royalty. The air was different here, cleaner somehow, as though even the oxygen was premium in this section. The music was still loud, but the acoustics were better, less assault and more immersion. My heart hammered against my ribs as we moved through the space. Up close, the wealth was even more intimidating. Every detail screamed money in a language I'd never learned to speak. Designer labels I recognized from fashion magazines I couldn't afford. Watches that cost more than cars. Women whose beauty was the kind that required professional maintenance. I didn't belong here. I was a fraud in my H&M dress, my hair styled at home instead of at a salon, my makeup from the drugstore. These people would smell the poverty on me like blood in the water. The man in the corner hadn't moved. As we drew closer, I could make out more details. A strong jaw with just a hint of stubble. Hands that looked equally capable of signing documents or breaking bones. A platinum watch on his left wrist that caught the light when he reached for his drink. Some amber liquor in a crystal tumbler. "Go on," Carolina whispered, giving me a small push. "Or we can leave now and you can start packing." I forced my feet to move. The plush carpet absorbed the sound of my steps, but I felt like I was making enough noise to wake the dead. My pulse pounded in my ears, nearly drowning out the music. What was I doing? This was insane. I should turn around, grab my things from the apartment, and figure something else out. But there was nothing else. I'd already worked every shift the cafe would give me. I'd already sold my laptop, my jewelry, everything of value I owned. I was out of options and out of time. I stopped 3 feet from his table. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Not just handsome, though he was that in a way that made my mouth go dry, but powerful, the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge my presence in any way, just sat there, perfectly still, perfectly controlled, radiating an authority that made me want to back away slowly. "Excuse me," I heard myself say, my voice embarrassingly small. Still nothing. Maybe he couldn't hear me over the music. Maybe he was ignoring me. Maybe I should take the hint and run. But 3 months of rent, 3 months of breathing room, 3 months to fix my life. I stepped closer, my knee bumping the edge of his table. The crystal tumbler didn't even wobble. "Excuse me." I tried again, louder this time. His eyes lifted to mine, and the world stopped. They were dark, almost black in the low light, but with flecks of amber that caught the glow from the nearby fixtures. Intelligent eyes, assessing eyes, eyes that saw everything and gave away nothing. Sim? The Portuguese was clipped, carrying an accent I couldn't quite place. Not local. Somewhere north, maybe. Or perhaps he'd spent time abroad. My throat had gone completely dry. The plan, such as it was, had been simple. Walk up, kiss him, walk away. Carolina and Sophia would have their entertainment, I'd have my rent, and we'd never speak of it again. But standing here under the weight of that dark gaze, I realized how monumentally stupid I'd been. This wasn't some drunk college boy who'd laugh off an unexpected kiss. This was a man who looked like he'd never had an unexpected moment in his life. The words died in my throat. One dark eyebrow lifted fractionally. It wasn't quite impatience, but it wasn't encouragement either. Behind me, I heard Sophia's distinctive laugh. They were watching, waiting for me to fail, waiting to have their excuse to throw me out. The thought steadied me somehow. I'd survived poverty, survived my father walking out, survived my mother's death, and the debt it left behind. I'd survived 3 years of law school while working full-time. I could survive one kiss. Before I could lose my nerve, I leaned down and pressed my lips to his. The world exploded. Not with sound or light, but with sensation. His lips were warm, firm, completely still beneath mine for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. Then everything changed. His hand came up, lightning fast, catching the back of my neck. Not rough, but undeniably controlling, holding me in place as he took over the kiss. His mouth moved against mine with a skill that made my knees weak, coaxing my lips open, tasting me with a thoroughness that suggested he was memorizing every detail. I'd been kissed before. Quick fumbles with boys my age who were more eager than skilled. This was nothing like that. This was being claimed, consumed, possessed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing and was in absolutely no hurry. When he finally released me, I stumbled back a step, my hand flying to my mouth. My lips tingled. My heart raced. Every nerve ending in my body had come alive in a way I didn't recognize. He studied me with those dark eyes, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke, his voice low and precise, carrying easily despite the music. "Your name." It wasn't a question. It was a command wrapped in 2 words. I should have run. Should have grabbed Carolina and Sophia and gotten as far from this man as possible. But my tongue had developed a mind of its own. "Fernanda," I whispered. "Fernanda." The way he said it made it sound like something precious or dangerous. "Sit down, Fernanda." It was a terrible idea. I knew it was a terrible idea. But I found myself sinking onto the leather sofa beside him anyway, my legs no longer entirely trustworthy. He gestured to someone I couldn't see, and moments later, a waiter appeared with a fresh tumbler of that amber liquid. The man pushed it toward me. "Drink." I picked up the glass with shaking hands. The liquor was smooth, expensive, nothing like the cheap vodka I'd choked down earlier. It burned going down, but warmed my chest, steadying my nerves slightly. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why what?" "Why did you kiss me?" The honest answer was too humiliating. I looked away, focusing on the glass in my hands. "Does it matter?" "It matters." His voice carried absolute certainty. "People don't approach me without a reason. So I'll ask again. Why?" I could feel his eyes on me, patient and unyielding. He would wait all night if he had to. I knew it as certainly as I knew my own name. "A bet," I admitted finally. "My roommates bet me I wouldn't have the courage to kiss the scariest man in VIP. And I was the scariest?" Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "I'm not sure if I should be flattered or concerned about your judgment." "You're alone," I said before I could stop myself. "Everyone else is in groups, performing for each other. But you're just here, like you don't need anyone or anything. That's terrifying in its own way." He studied me for a long moment. "What do you win? This bet." Heat flooded my cheeks. 3 months of rent. You're a student." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. "Law. Judging by the case files in your bag." He gestured to where I'd set down my worn messenger bag, containing the reading I'd been doing before Carolina and Sophia had dragged me out tonight. "How did you—" "I pay attention." He took a slow sip of his drink. "How much is 3 months of rent?" The question felt like a trap, but I was too far in to stop now. 3,000 reais. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then set it face down on the table. "Done. The money will be in your account by morning." I stared at him. "What?" 3,000 reais. Consider the bet won." His eyes locked on mine. "But understand this, Fernanda. I don't give anything for free. That kiss wasn't part of your bet. That kiss was theft. And now you owe me." Ice flooded my veins. "I don't understand." "You will." He stood, his height suddenly overwhelming. He had to be over 6 feet, broad-shouldered and powerful. "Go back to your friends. Enjoy your victory, but know that I'll be collecting on your debt." "When?" The word escaped before I could stop it. His smile was slow and predatory. "When I'm ready." "What's your full name, Fernanda?" "Fernanda Oliveira." He nodded once, as though confirming something. "Go, before I decide to collect tonight." I scrambled to my feet, grabbing my bag, but as I turned to leave, his voice stopped me. Fernanda. I looked back. I always collect my debts. Always. I fled back to Carolina and Sophia, who were practically vibrating with excitement. They peppered me with questions I couldn't answer, my mind still reeling from what had just happened. I'd won the bet. 3,000 reais would appear in my account by morning, he'd said. But I'd made a deal with a devil whose name I didn't even know. As we left the club, I glanced back once. He was watching me from his corner table, his expression unreadable. Our eyes met across the distance, and I felt it again. That sense of being seen, claimed, marked. I'd kissed him to solve a problem. I had no idea I'd just created a much bigger one. 3 days passed before I saw him again. 3 days during which I tried to convince myself it had been nothing more than a strange encounter, fueled by expensive liquor and bad judgment. The money had appeared in my account exactly as promised. 3,000 reais, transferred at 6:47 a.m. the morning after the bet, from an account belonging to Monteiro Holdings. No message, no explanation. Just the money and the memory of dark eyes promising that I owed him. I'd paid my portion of the rent immediately, ignoring Carolina and Sophia's questions about how I'd managed to get the funds so quickly. They assumed their intimidating friend had paid up out of amusement or pity. I let them believe it. Better that than the truth. That I'd somehow indebted myself to a man whose name I didn't even know. Life returned to its exhausting routine. Classes in the morning, shifts at Café Esperança in the afternoon, studying late into the night with instant coffee and determination. By the third day, I'd almost convinced myself that Monteiro Holdings was just some wealthy man who'd been entertained by a desperate law student's boldness and forgotten about me immediately after. I was wrong. He was waiting outside the cafe when my shift ended at 9. Leaning against a black Mercedes that probably cost more than my entire education, he looked completely out of place among the student bars and budget restaurants that lined this street. His suit was charcoal gray tonight, perfectly tailored, making every other man on the sidewalk look like they'd dressed in the dark. My feet stopped moving of their own accord. I stood in the cafe's doorway, my stained apron still tied around my waist, my hair escaping from the bun I'd twisted it into hours ago. The late September air was cool against my overheated skin, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust. He didn't call out, didn't wave, just watched me with those dark eyes, patient as death. Fernanda? My coworker Marcos appeared beside me, following my gaze. Você conhece ele? Do you know him? Did I? I knew what his mouth felt like against mine. Knew that he paid his debts and expected others to pay theirs. Knew that he had the kind of money that moved at dawn, and the kind of presence that made everyone around him seem less substantial. But I didn't know his name. Didn't know what he wanted from me. Didn't know why my heart was racing like I'd run a marathon. I'm not sure, I admitted. Marcos frowned. You want me to walk you home? That car, that suit? He looks like trouble, Fernanda. He was right. Every instinct I possessed was screaming danger. But my feet were already moving toward him, drawn by something I couldn't name and didn't want to examine too closely. I'll be fine, I lied. See you tomorrow. The Mercedes unlocked with a soft chirp as I approached. He opened the passenger door himself, a gesture that would have been gentlemanly if it hadn't felt like a command. Get in. I don't even know your name, I said, stopping just out of reach. Felipe Monteiro. He studied me. And you know more than that, don't you? You've been researching. He was right. I'd spent 2 hours at the law library yesterday, using their computers to search Monteiro Holdings. What I'd found had made my blood run cold. Felipe Monteiro, 34 years old, CEO of one of the largest import-export businesses in Brazil, with connections stretching from São Paulo to Rio to Salvador and beyond. Charitable donations to the right causes, photographs at the right events, and underneath all that legitimate business, whispers, rumors, allegations that never quite stuck about money laundering, protection rackets, connections to organized crime families that supposedly didn't exist anymore. The kind of man my professors warned us about in criminal law. The kind who operated in shadows while presenting a respectable face to the world. I researched a company name, I said carefully. That doesn't tell me who you really are. Doesn't it? His smile was slight. Get in the car, Fernanda. We need to talk about your debt. The word sent a chill through me. I don't owe you anything. You gave me money freely. I gave you money for a bet, but the kiss? His eyes darkened. That was taken without permission. That requires payment of a different sort. What do you want? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Dinner, tonight, you and me. That's it? Just dinner? To start, he gestured to the car again. I don't like to repeat myself, Fernanda. I should have walked away, should have gone back inside the cafe and called the police, though I suspected that would accomplish exactly nothing. Men like Felipe Montero didn't get touched by things as mundane as police reports. But curiosity warred with fear, and underneath both was something else. The memory of that kiss. The way he'd looked at me like I was worth seeing. Not just another piece of the furniture in his expensive world. I got in the car. The interior smelled of leather and his cologne. Something expensive and woody that made me want to lean closer. He slid into the driver's seat with fluid grace, and the engine purred to life like a contented cat. I'm still in my uniform, I protested as he pulled into traffic. I know what you look like, Fernanda. The clothes don't matter. We drove in silence through streets that grew progressively nicer, leaving behind the student district for areas where the buildings had security gates, and the cars parked outside cost more than I'd make in a decade. Finally, he pulled up to a restaurant I'd only seen in magazines, Celestino, where reservations were booked months in advance and the cheapest entree started at 200 rays. I can't afford this, I said flatly. You're not paying. He was already out of the car, coming around to open my door. I am. Consider it part of your debt repayment plan. Inside, we were greeted like royalty. The maitre d' recognized Felipe immediately, his professional composure cracking just slightly into genuine warmth. Señor Montero, your usual table is ready. His usual table was in a private alcove with a view of the gardens, secluded enough for conversation but positioned to see the entire restaurant. Strategic, I realized. A man like Felipe wouldn't sit with his back to a room. I studied the menu and felt faint. The prices weren't even listed. Order whatever you want, Felipe said, his attention on me rather than his own menu. Why are you doing this? I set the menu down, meeting his eyes. A kiss doesn't warrant all of this. So what do you really want? He leaned back, considering me with that unnerving stillness. You interest me. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He signaled the waiter. The lady will have the risotto with truffles, and I'll have the ribeye, rare. I didn't order risotto. You were about to order the cheapest thing on the menu to minimize your perceived debt. His eyes held mine. I won't let you minimize yourself, Fernanda. Not in my presence. The accuracy of the observation stole my breath. How did he see so clearly? How did he know? The food arrived, perfect and pretentious, and I ate because refusing seemed childish. Felipe asked questions between courses. About my studies, my ambitions, my life. I answered carefully, revealing enough to satisfy without giving away anything that felt too personal. But he was good at this, drawing out information with the skill of someone who'd spent a lifetime reading people. Your father? He asked as dessert arrived, some elaborate chocolate creation I hadn't ordered. Gone, left when I was 12. Your mother? Dead, cancer 2 years ago. The words were clinical, emotionless. I'd practiced delivering them that way. The medical bills are why I'm in debt. Something flickered in his eyes. No other family? No one. I lifted my chin. I'm used to taking care of myself. I can see that. He pushed the dessert toward me. But you're not alone anymore. Because of one kiss? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Because you're mine now. He said it with such simple certainty. That kiss sealed it, whether you meant to or not. My fork clattered against the plate. I'm not anyone's property. No, he agreed. You're not property. You're a debt, and I always collect what I'm owed. The drive back to my apartment was silent. My mind churned with everything I'd learned, everything I suspected. Felipe Montero was dangerous in ways I couldn't fully comprehend yet. But he'd been nothing but courteous tonight. Unsettling, yes. Possessive, absolutely. But not cruel. He walked me to my door despite my protests. This isn't necessary, I said. I decide what's necessary. His hand touched my lower back, warm through the thin fabric of my uniform. I'll pick you up Saturday at 8. Wear something nice. I have to study on Saturday. You'll study Friday instead. Not a suggestion, a statement of fact. You can't just... He kissed me. Right there in the hallway of my crumbling apartment building, he pulled me against him and kissed me with the same thoroughness as that first night. When he released me, I was breathless and furious and desperately wanting more. Saturday, he repeated. 8 o'clock. Don't make me come find you, Fernanda. Then he was gone, leaving me trembling in the hallway with the taste of him on my lips and the certainty that my life had just become infinitely more complicated. Saturday arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. I spent Friday buried in my textbooks, trying to convince myself that I could simply not be home when Felipe came to collect me, that I could ignore his command and return to my normal life. The fantasy lasted until Friday night, when a delivery arrived at my door. A garment bag and a velvet box, accompanied by a card in bold, masculine handwriting. Wear this. F. Inside the bag was a dress that made my breath catch. Deep emerald silk that would hug every curve before flowing to mid-thigh, with a neckline that was daring without being inappropriate. The kind of dress I'd never owned, never even tried on. The kind that cost more than my monthly food budget. The box contained shoes. Heels in black leather that were somehow both elegant and dangerous, with red soles that I recognized from fashion magazines. Louboutin. Easily 2,000 rays or more. I should have sent them back. Should have texted the number on his card. Yes, he'd included his number. Presumptuous bastard. And told him I wasn't some doll he could dress up and parade around. Instead, I hung the dress carefully in my closet and spent Saturday afternoon getting ready with a care I hadn't taken since my mother's funeral. He arrived at 8 exactly. I watched from my window as the Mercedes pulled up, Felipe emerging in a black suit that made him look like sin personified. My roommates were out, thank God, sparing me their questions and speculation. I met him at the door before he could knock, not wanting him inside my shabby apartment with its second-hand furniture and water-stained ceiling. His eyes traveled over me slowly, appreciatively. Perfect, he murmured, though I knew it would be. Where are we going? The opera. He offered his arm. Madame Butterfly. Have you seen it? I'd never been to the opera in my life. No. Good. I'll enjoy watching you experience it for the first time. The Teatro Municipal was breathtaking, all gilded architecture and velvet seats. Our box was private, positioned perfectly to see the stage while remaining somewhat secluded from the other patrons. Champagne waited for us, condensation beating on the crystal bottle. As the lights dimmed and the music began, I felt Felipe's hand find mine. Not demanding, just there. A connection that made my pulse quicken. The opera was beautiful and tragic, the story of love and betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. When the final notes faded and Butterfly's death scene concluded, I realized there were tears on my cheeks. Felipe's thumb brushed them away gently. "It affects you." "She gave up everything for him," I whispered. "Her family, her culture, her identity, and he abandoned her anyway." "Some men don't deserve what they're given." His voice was quiet. "I wouldn't abandon you, Fernanda. You don't have me to abandon." But the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. During intermission, we stayed in the box while others filed out to socialize. Felipe poured champagne, his movements practiced and sure. "Tell me about her," he said. "Your mother." The question surprised me. "Why?" "Because she made you who you are. I want to understand that." I sipped the champagne, gathering my thoughts. "She was a teacher. Elementary school. She loved it. Loved the kids." The words came easier than I expected. "When she got sick, she kept working as long as she could. Said the children needed her." "And when she couldn't work anymore?" "The bills piled up. The insurance didn't cover everything. I took out loans, worked every hour I could, but it wasn't enough. By the time she died, I was drowning in debt." I met his eyes. "That's why I'm in law school, to fight systems that destroy people like her. To make sure other families don't face what we did." Something shifted in his expression. "You have fire in you, purpose. Most people in your position would have given up, dropped out, found an easier path. There is no easier path for people like me, just different forms of struggle. What if there was?" He set down his glass. "What if I could make all of that disappear? The debt, the exhaustion, the constant fear of falling behind." My heart stuttered. "Nothing comes for free. You've made that clear." "No, it doesn't." He leaned closer. "But what if the price was something you could bear? What if I offered you a deal, Fernanda?" "What kind of deal?" "Stay with me. Not forever, not even permanently if you don't want. But give me 6 months. 6 months where you're mine, my companion, my partner, visible at my side. In return, I'll pay off every real of your debt. I'll ensure you graduate. I'll give you everything you need to build the future you want." The offer was staggering, too good to be true. "Why would you do that?" "Because I want you." His honesty was brutal. "I've wanted you since that first kiss, and I'm a man who gets what he wants." "This is insane. We barely know each other." "So we'll get to know each other. 6 months, Fernanda. That's all I'm asking." "And at the end of 6 months, you're free to walk away, debt-free, degree in hand, with no obligations." His eyes held mine. "Or you can stay. That choice will be yours. And if I say no now," his smile was slight, "then we continue as we are. I'll pursue you, court you, wear down your resistance until you say yes. But this way is cleaner, honest, a business arrangement between two people who want different things, but can help each other get them. You'd have access to my life, my time, I'll have what you're willing to give," he interrupted. "I'm not interested in taking you by force, Fernanda. I want your willing participation, your genuine presence. That's worth more than any reluctant compliance." The second act was beginning, the lights dimming once more. I stared at the stage without seeing it, my mind churning with possibilities and fears. 6 months. Freedom from debt. A guaranteed degree. Everything I'd been fighting for, handed to me in exchange for spending time with a man who made my pulse race, and my instincts scream danger in equal measure. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "Of course." His hand found mine again in the darkness. Take all the time you need. But I could hear the confidence in his voice. He knew I'd say yes. Maybe I knew it too. After the opera, he drove me home through streets slick with rain that had begun during the second act. The rhythmic sweep of windshield wipers filled the silence. "Come to dinner tomorrow," he said as we pulled up to my building. "My house. Let me show you what I'm offering before you make your decision." "Your house?" "I want you to see how you'd live, what your life could be like." He turned to face me. "Make an informed choice, Fernanda. That's all I ask." The next evening, I found myself in Felipe's Mercedes again, driving through neighborhoods I'd only seen in magazines. The houses grew progressively larger, the walls higher, until we turned into a gated driveway that led to something that could only be called a mansion. Modern architecture of glass and concrete, positioned to maximize the view of the city below. Lighting that made the structure glow against the darkening sky. Security that was subtle but unmistakable in the cameras and the guard who waved Felipe through. Inside was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, museum-quality art, furniture that looked like it belonged in design magazines. Everything was masculine but refined, powerful but tasteful. "You live here alone?" I asked, my voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "Mostly. I have staff who come during the day, but I prefer my evenings private." He led me to a dining room where the table was already set for two, candles flickering in the low light. "Sit. Dinner will be ready shortly." The meal was prepared by a private chef who appeared only to present each course before disappearing again. Every dish was perfection, the kind of food I'd only dreamed about. "This would be your life," Felipe said, watching me taste the wine he'd poured. "If you agree, security, comfort, opportunity. All you'd have to do is be yourself and allow me to care for you." "Be myself and be seen as yours," I corrected. "Yes." He didn't deny it. "I won't pretend my motives are purely altruistic. Having you at my side serves my purposes as well. People see a man with a beautiful, intelligent woman and draw certain conclusions: stability, commitment, legitimacy." The honesty was almost refreshing. "You want me as window dressing. I want you as a partner. There's a difference." He set down his fork. "You're smart enough to navigate my world, strong enough to hold your own, and brave enough to challenge me. Those qualities are rare and valuable." After dinner, he showed me the rest of the house, a library that made my heart ache with longing. Floor-to-ceiling books, a rolling ladder, deep leather chairs perfect for reading, a home gym, a pool that overlooked the city lights, and a bedroom suite that was larger than my entire apartment. "This would be yours," he said, opening the door to reveal a space decorated in soft creams and golds. "Your sanctuary. I have my own room down the hall. I won't push for intimacy you're not ready to give." "And when I am ready?" The question escaped before I could stop it. His eyes darkened with heat. "Then I'll make sure you never regret it." We stood in the doorway of that beautiful room, the air thick with possibility. I should have said no, should have walked away from this dangerous man and his dangerous offer. But all I could think about was freedom, real freedom, not the illusion I'd been chasing with my minimum wage jobs and crushing debt. 6 months, I heard myself say. And at the end, I walk away free and clear, no matter what. 6 months, he agreed, starting now. He kissed me then, backing me into that room that would be mine, his mouth claiming me with a thoroughness that made my knees weak. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "I should go home," I whispered. "Pack my things. Tomorrow. Tonight, stay here. Let me show you what you've agreed to." And God help me, I did. Moving into Felipe's house happened with the same efficiency that seemed to characterize everything in his life. Within 3 days, My meager possessions had been transported from the cramped apartment I'd shared with Carolina and Sophia to the stunning bedroom suite that was now mine. My roommates had been shocked when I'd told them I was leaving. Even more shocked when a moving truck arrived to collect my things while Felipe waited in his Mercedes outside, making it clear this wasn't a kidnapping, but a choice. "You're insane," Carolina had hissed as I packed. "That man is dangerous." She was right, but danger came in many forms, and I'd been drowning in a different kind for too long. The first week was an adjustment that left me feeling disoriented and off balance. I woke each morning in sheets that cost more than my monthly rent had been, in a room 3 times the size of my old bedroom. A housekeeper named Rosa brought coffee exactly how I liked it, without me ever telling her my preference. Breakfast appeared at whatever time I emerged, perfectly prepared, waste never mentioned. Felipe worked from home most days, conducting business from his study in rapid Portuguese and occasionally Italian. I continued my classes, but now a driver took me to campus in one of Felipe's cars, a less ostentatious sedan than the Mercedes, but still far nicer than anything I'd ever owned. "You'll draw attention," I'd protested the first morning. "Let them look." He'd been reviewing contracts at breakfast, reading glasses perched on his nose in a way that made him look distinguished rather than diminished. "You're mine now. People should know it." The possessiveness should have chafed. Instead, it wrapped around me like a warm blanket. For the first time in years, someone was taking care of me. Really taking care of me, not out of obligation or pity, but because he wanted to. He'd paid off my debts in the first week. Every single one. Student loans, medical bills, credit cards I'd maxed out buying my mother's medications. All of it, gone with a few transfers that probably didn't even register in his vast wealth. "You didn't have to do it all at once," I'd said, when he'd shown me the paid-in-full statements. Yes, I did. He'd pulled me onto his lap in his study, his arms coming around me with possessive ease. "I want nothing hanging over you. No weight, no fear. Just freedom to be exactly who you are." And who am I? Mine. He'd kissed my neck, the stubble on his jaw scraping pleasantly against my skin. "My Fernanda, my brilliant, stubborn, beautiful law student who challenges me at every turn." The physical intimacy had grown gradually. That first night, he'd kept his promise, kissing me senseless before retreating to his own room with visible restraint. But each day brought us closer. His hand at my waist as we moved through the house, his lips on my temple when he passed my chair, the way he looked at me over dinner like I was something precious and breakable. By the end of the second week, I was spending more time in his room than my own. "Tell me about your family," I said one night, curled against his side in his massive bed. We'd been kissing, hands exploring, but he'd stopped before things went too far, his control impressive and frustrating in equal measure. Not much to tell. His fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder. I'd taken to stealing his shirts to sleep in, and he seemed to enjoy seeing me in them. My father built the business from nothing. Import-export, exactly as legitimate as it needed to be. And the rest? The rest was survival, protection, insurance for when legitimate channels failed us. He was quiet for a moment. He died when I was 23. Heart attack. Left me an empire and enemies in equal measure. Is that why you're so controlled? So careful? I learned early that showing weakness gets you killed. His arm tightened around me. But with you, I feel something I haven't felt in years. What? Safe. The admission was quiet. Like I can breathe without calculating every move 3 steps ahead. I lifted my head to look at him. In the low light from the city beyond his windows, he looked younger, less forbidding. "I make you feel safe?" "You make me feel human." He cupped my face. "Everyone else wants something from me. Power, money, connections, access. But you?" His thumb brushed my lower lip. You just want me to stop being so controlling and let you make your own coffee in the morning. I laughed despite myself. We'd had that argument just yesterday. Your housekeeper makes perfect coffee. But you like the ritual of making it yourself. I understand that now. He kissed me softly. I'm learning you, Fernanda. All your preferences and quirks and stubborn independence. And I'm adjusting. That must be hard for you, adjusting. Everything worthwhile is hard. His hand slid into my hair. But you're worth it. The third week brought new complications. Felipe had a business dinner he needed to attend. Some gathering of wealthy businessmen and their wives to discuss charitable foundations and make connections that had nothing to do with charity. I need you with me, he'd said over breakfast, as my companion. I don't have anything appropriate to wear to something like that. His smile had been knowing. I've taken care of it. The dress that appeared in my room that afternoon was a masterpiece. Midnight blue silk that hugged my body before flowing to the floor, with a slit that went higher than I was comfortable with, but Felipe definitely appreciated. Jewelry followed. Diamonds that were probably real and definitely expensive. I can't wear these, I'd protested when he fastened the necklace around my throat. What if I lose them? Then I'll buy you more. He'd turned me to face the mirror, standing behind me with his hands on my waist. Look at yourself, Fernanda. You're stunning. The woman in the mirror was unrecognizable. Polished, elegant, expensive. Everything I'd never been. I don't belong in your world, I whispered. You belong wherever I put you. His voice was firm. And tonight, you belong at my side. The dinner was held at a private club I'd only read about, where membership cost more than most people made in a year. I clung to Felipe's arm as we entered, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking us, the whispered speculation. He introduced me to men whose faces I recognized from business magazines, women who assessed me with the precision of jewelers examining a stone. I smiled, made polite conversation, and tried not to feel like a fraud. You're doing perfectly, Felipe murmured during a rare moment of privacy. They're all wondering where I found you. And what do you tell them? That you found me. His hand settled possessively on my lower back. That you walked into my life and changed everything. It wasn't entirely untrue. That kiss had changed everything, set in motion a chain of events that had transformed my entire existence. Halfway through dinner, a woman approached our table. Beautiful in that carefully maintained way wealthy women achieved, probably in her early 40s, with ice in her eyes. Felipe. Her voice was cultured Portuguese with French undertones. I heard you'd found a new companion. How quaint. Felipe's expression didn't change, but I felt him tense beside me. Isabella, I didn't realize you were in São Paulo. Just visiting. Her gaze raked over me dismissively. Aren't you going to introduce us? Fernanda Oliveira. This is Isabella Cardoso, an old acquaintance. The way he said acquaintance suggested they'd been much more. Isabella, Fernanda is my guest? Isabella's smile was sharp. How long do your guests usually last, Felipe? 3 months? 6? Careful. His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet. You're being rude. I'm being honest. She leaned closer. Don't get too comfortable, querida. Men like Felipe don't settle down. They collect beautiful things for a season, then move on to the next shiny object. The words stung, probably because they echoed my own fears. But before I could respond, Felipe stood, his hand finding mine. We're leaving. Not angry, just done. Enjoy your evening, Isabella. In the car, silence stretched between us. I stared out the window, processing what had just happened. She was your lover, I said finally. Not a question. Years ago, before I knew better. He kept his eyes on the road. She means nothing now. But she's right, isn't she? This is temporary. 6 months, and then I leave. He pulled the car over abruptly, turning to face me. 6 months was the deal. But that doesn't mean I want you to leave. What are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere between that first kiss and right now, this stopped being about debt and deals. His hand cupped my face. I want you, Fernanda. Not for 6 months. Not as a temporary companion. I want you. For how long? As long as you'll let me have you. He kissed me then, deep and desperate. Stay. Not because of our agreement, but because you want to. Because this thing between us is real. Felipe, don't answer now. Just think about it. He pulled back onto the road. But know that I'm falling for you. Have been since you walked up to me in that club and stole a kiss like you had every right to it. We didn't speak for the rest of the drive. But that night, when he walked me to my room and turned to leave, I caught his hand. Stay, I whispered. Not in your room. Here, with me. His eyes darkened with heat and something deeper. Fernanda, if I stay, I know what I'm asking. I pulled him inside, closing the door behind us. I want this. I want you. What happened next was a claiming in the truest sense. He undressed me slowly, reverently, worshipping every inch of skin he revealed. When he finally made me his, it was with a thoroughness that left me gasping and trembling, my fingers digging into his shoulders as pleasure crashed over me in waves. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with our heartbeats gradually slowing, I realized the truth. 6 months had been a lie from the beginning. I wasn't leaving. Couldn't leave. Somewhere along the way, I'd fallen completely and irrevocably in love with Felipe Montero. And from the way he held me, possessive even in sleep, I suspected he knew it. 3 months into our arrangement, I discovered the full extent of Felipe's world. It started innocuously enough. I was in his study, searching for a textbook I'd left there, when I knocked over a stack of files. Papers scattered across his desk, and as I gathered them, certain words caught my eye. Shipment schedules, port manifests, names I recognized from organized crime cases we'd studied in criminal law, and amounts of money that made my head spin. Fernanda. Felipe's voice from the doorway made me jump. What are you doing? I held up the papers with shaking hands. I was looking for my book. These fell. I met his eyes. Tell me these don't mean what I think they mean. He closed the door behind him, his expression unreadable. What do you think they mean? That your import-export business isn't as legitimate as you claim. My voice was barely steady. That you're moving more than legal goods through those ports. That everything I've studied about organized crime structures applies to you. He didn't deny it. Just moved to his desk and took the papers from my hands, filing them away with methodical precision. You knew what I was when you agreed to this. I knew rumors, speculation. I didn't know facts. I sank into one of his chairs. Felipe, I'm studying to be a lawyer. I can't be involved with someone who's actively breaking the law. You've been involved with me for 3 months. He poured whiskey from a decanter, offering me a glass I refused. This is who I've always been, Fernanda. The only difference is now you've seen proof. So what am I supposed to do with this knowledge? Nothing. He sat across from me. You continue your studies. You graduate. You become the lawyer you're meant to be. And you understand that the world isn't as black and white as your textbooks suggest. That's a convenient rationalization for crime. Is it crime to protect my workers when the unions fail them? To ensure goods reach people who need them when bureaucracy would delay them for months? To provide services the government can't or won't? His voice remained calm. I operate in gray areas, yes. But I'm not a monster, Fernanda. You're still breaking the law. Laws written by people who've never struggled, never fought for survival, never had to choose between legal and necessary. He leaned forward. I won't apologize for what I do, but I will promise you this. You'll never be implicated. Your career will never be touched by my business. I keep those worlds completely separate. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that wasn't good enough, that I couldn't be with someone who operated outside the law I was dedicating my life to upholding. But the truth was more complicated. Because I'd seen the other side of Felipe's business too. The legitimate shipments that employed thousands. The charitable foundations that educated children from favelas. The medical clinics he funded in neighborhoods the government ignored. The complexity of him defied simple categorization. I need time to process this, I said finally. Take all the time you need. He stood. But know that I won't let you go easily. Whether you can accept what I am or not, you're mine, Fernanda. That doesn't change. The possessiveness that had once thrilled me now felt suffocating. I retreated to my room, my mind churning with ethical dilemmas my professors had never prepared me for. What did it mean to love someone whose methods you couldn't condone? Could I build a legal career while being involved with someone who operated outside the law? Was Felipe's gray area morality actually more honest than the legal system's pretense of black and white justice? I was still wrestling with these questions when Rosa knocked on my door the next morning. Miss Fernanda, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your old roommate. Carolina stood in the foyer, her expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. I'd barely spoken to her or Sophia since moving out, our friendship strained by the gulf my relationship with Felipe had created. Can we talk? She asked. Somewhere private? I led her to the library, closing the doors behind us. What's wrong? I need to know if you're okay. She gripped my hands. Really okay. Because there are rumors, Fernanda, about Felipe Montero and the kind of man he is. I know what kind of man he is. Do you? Do you know about the warehouse fire last year that killed 3 people? The one that happened right after the owner refused to sell to Montero Holdings? Or the journalist who was writing an exposé on his business practices and suddenly left the country? Ice flooded my veins. What are you saying? I'm saying that Felipe Montero is dangerous, that people who cross him end up hurt or worse, and I'm worried that you're in over your head. He wouldn't hurt me. Maybe not directly. But what about the people around you? What about me or Sophia or anyone else who might become collateral damage? Her eyes were genuinely frightened. I care about you, Fernanda. I don't want to see you destroyed by this. After she left, I confronted Felipe in his study. The warehouse fire, the journalist. Tell me the truth. He looked up from his laptop, his expression carefully neutral. The truth is complicated. Then uncomplicate it. I crossed my arms. Did you have anything to do with those incidents? The warehouse was owned by a man who was running a sweatshop. Children, Fernanda. Children working 16-hour days in unsafe conditions. I offered to buy it, shut it down properly, relocate the workers to legitimate facilities. He refused. Felipe's voice was controlled. The fire was investigated, faulty wiring, but yes, some people believe I was involved. And were you? No. But I won't pretend I mourned the loss of a building that represented exploitation. He stood. As for the journalist, she was paid handsomely to pursue her career elsewhere. No threats, no violence, just money and opportunity. You're asking me to take your word for it. I'm asking you to trust me. He moved closer. I've never lied to you, Fernanda. Never pretended to be something I'm not. Yes, I operate in morally ambiguous territory. Yes, I make decisions that others might question. But I have lines I don't cross, and hurting innocent people is one of them. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. I love you, I whispered. The admission escaped before I could stop it. That's the problem. I love you, and I don't know if that makes me complicit in everything you do. His hands cupped my face, his eyes intense. Say it again. What? That you love me. Say it again. I love you. Tears spilled down my cheeks, even though I shouldn't, even though it's complicated and messy and probably destructive. I love you, Felipe. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, tasting my tears and my confession. When he pulled back, his own eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you too, he said, the words rough. More than I've ever loved anything or anyone. You've become the center of my world, Fernanda. The only thing that matters beyond survival and power. What does that mean for us? It means we figure this out together. His thumb brushed away my tears. It means I'll be more transparent with you about my business. It means we build something that works for both of us, even if it's unconventional. I can't be involved in anything illegal. You won't be. I swear it. He pulled me against him. Your career, your integrity, those are sacred. I won't let my world contaminate yours. Over the following weeks, Felipe kept his promise. He showed me the full scope of his operations, the legitimate and the gray areas. He introduced me to his key people, made it clear that I was to be kept separate from anything questionable. He even set up a trust in my name, ensuring that if anything happened to him, I'd be financially secure without any connection to his more dubious ventures. And slowly, reluctantly, I began to understand the complexity of his world. The way he employed people no one else would hire. The way he protected neighborhoods the police ignored. The way he operated as a kind of parallel government in spaces where the official one had failed. It didn't make it legal, but it made it comprehensible in a way my textbooks never had. 4 months in, Felipe took me to meet his mother. Dona Sofia lived in a beautiful estate in the countryside. Surrounded by gardens, she tended herself despite having staff who could do it for her. She was elegant and sharp-eyed, assessing me with the precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime reading people. So, you're the one who's tamed my son, she said over lunch, her Portuguese carrying the same northern accent as Felipe's. I haven't tamed anyone, I protested. No? She smiled. He calls me 3 times a week now. He used to call once a month. He's talking about the future, about building something beyond just business. That's you, querida. You've given him a reason to think beyond survival. Did you know? I asked quietly. What he does? I know what my husband did, what my son does. Her eyes were sad but clear. I don't approve of all of it, but I understand why. When you're excluded from legitimate power structures, you build your own. It's not right, but it's real. How do you live with it? By loving him anyway. By being the person he comes home to when he needs to remember his humanity. And she reached across the table to squeeze my hand. That's your role now, if you choose to accept it. To be his conscience, his anchor, his reason to be better than he has to be. The weight of that responsibility settled on my shoulders. But looking at Felipe across the garden where he was taking a business call, I realized I'd already accepted it. Somewhere along the way, his redemption had become tied to my own. That night, as we drove back to the city, Felipe's hand found mine. My mother likes you. How can you tell? She called you querida. She only does that with family. He brought my hand to his lips. And she's right. You have tamed me, Fernanda. Made me want things I never thought I could have. A real relationship. A future. Maybe even... He stopped. But I knew what he'd been about to say. Maybe even a family. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it filled me with a longing so intense it stole my breath. 5 months in, I realized I was in too deep to ever surface. Felipe Montero, with all his complications and contradictions, had become my world, and I was about to become his wife. The proposal happened on a random Tuesday, in the most Felipe way possible, without warning and with absolute certainty. I was studying for my final exams, sprawled across his bed in one of his shirts and my reading glasses, when he walked in and simply said, "Marry me." I looked up from my constitutional law textbook. "What?" "Marry me, Fernanda." He sat beside me, taking the book from my hands. "Not because of our agreement, not because it makes strategic sense, because I love you, and I want you to be mine legally, permanently, irrevocably. We've only been together 5 months. I knew after the first kiss." His hand cupped my face. "Everything since then has just been confirmation. Say yes." "You're insane." "Say yes anyway." I should have asked for time. Should have pointed out all the logical reasons this was too fast, too complicated, too everything. But all I could think about was how much I loved this man, how completely he'd changed my life, how the thought of leaving him in 1 month when our agreement ended made me physically ill. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." His kiss was claiming and celebratory, rolling me beneath him on the bed as he proceeded to show me exactly how happy my answer had made him. The ring appeared the next morning. A stunning emerald-cut diamond that probably cost more than a small house, flanked by smaller stones and set in platinum. It fit perfectly, because of course Felipe had somehow determined my ring size without me knowing. "We'll marry quickly," he said over breakfast, sliding legal documents across the table. 2 weeks. I've already arranged everything." 2 weeks? "Felipe, that's necessary." His expression turned serious. "There are people who see you as my weakness, Fernanda, as leverage they could use against me. Once you're my wife, you're protected by every alliance I've built, every obligation that binds my world together. You become untouchable." "Who are these people? Competitors? Enemies? It doesn't matter." He took my hand. "What matters is that I won't risk you. Marriage provides protection, that girlfriend status doesn't." The wedding planning happened with the same efficiency as everything else in Felipe's life. A designer came to the house with dresses. A wedding planner materialized with venue options. We chose a private ceremony at his mother's estate, intimate and beautiful. Invitations went to a carefully curated list of family and allies. My own guest list was pathetically short. A few classmates. Marcos from the cafe. No family because I had none left. "You have me now," Felipe said when he saw my sad little list. "And my family. You'll never be alone again." The words should have comforted me. Instead, they highlighted how completely my life had merged with his. I had no independent existence anymore, no safety net that didn't include him. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, reading my expression. "Just nervous." I forced a smile. "It's a big step. The biggest." He pulled me into his arms. "But we're taking it together. You and me, Fernanda. Building something that's ours." A week before the wedding, everything went wrong. I was in the library when I heard raised voices from Felipe's study. Curious and concerned, I moved closer, pressing my ear to the door. "Threatening her is off limits." Felipe's voice was cold with fury. "I've made that clear." "Then perhaps you should reconsider this marriage." An unfamiliar male voice, laced with menace. "Your attachment to this girl makes you vulnerable, Felipe. Weak. Careful, Vicente. You're close to crossing a line you won't survive crossing." "Am I? Or are you so besotted with your little law student that you've forgotten how our world works?" Papers rustled. "Break it off. Send her away. Prove you're still the man who built this empire, and not some lovesick fool who'll destroy everything for a woman." The sound of furniture scraping. Movement. Then Felipe's voice, deadly quiet. Get out. And understand this. If anyone touches her, if anyone even frightens her, I'll burn your organization to the ground and salt the earth behind me. She is mine. That makes her sacred. Spread the word. Footsteps approached the door. I barely made it back to the library before Vicente emerged, an older man with cruel eyes, who looked at me with undisguised contempt as he passed. Felipe found me 10 minutes later, my hands shaking as I pretended to read. You heard, he said, not a question. Who was that? No one you need to worry about. He knelt before me, taking my cold hands in his warm ones. I meant what I said, Fernanda. I'll protect you with everything I have. Maybe Vicente is right. Maybe I make you weak. No. His voice was fierce. You make me strong. Give me something worth fighting for beyond just power and survival. Don't let scared old men dictate our lives. I'm frightened, Felipe. The admission was barely audible. Not of you, but of your world. Of the people in it who see me as a liability instead of a person. Then we change their perception. He stood, pulling me up with him. We marry. We show united strength. And we make it clear that threatening you means going to war with me. And if they choose war, his smile was cold, then I'll win. I always do. The wedding day arrived wrapped in golden October sunshine. Dona Sofia's estate was transformed with white flowers and silk draping, intimate and elegant. I dressed in a gown that made me feel like a princess. Ivory lace with a flowing skirt and a neckline that was both modest and devastating. As I stood at the end of the aisle, watching Felipe wait for me in a black tuxedo that made him look like sin and salvation combined, I realized something profound. This wasn't capitulation. It wasn't surrender. It was choice. I was choosing this man, this complicated, dangerous, devoted man, choosing his world with all its moral ambiguity, choosing to be the person who anchored him to his better nature. And he was choosing me. Really choosing me. Not for strategy or convenience, but because somewhere between that first stolen kiss and this moment, we'd fallen irrevocably in love. I walked down the aisle to him, my hand steady, my heart full. You look like an angel, he whispered as I reached him. I'm not, I whispered back. I'm just a woman who loves you. That's all I need you to be. The ceremony was short and perfect. We spoke vows we'd written ourselves, his promising protection and devotion, mine promising partnership and loyalty. When he slid the platinum band onto my finger, I felt something settle deep in my soul. This was right. Against all logic and reason, this was exactly right. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant said with a smile. You may kiss your bride. Felipe's kiss was tender and claiming, a promise and a completion. The small gathering applauded, but I barely heard them. The world had narrowed to this man, this moment, this choice. At the reception, he pulled me close for our first dance as husband and wife. No regrets, he murmured against my hair. None. I looked up at him. You've given me everything I never knew I needed. And you've given me a reason to be better than I am. His arms tightened around me. I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of you, Fernanda Montero. Fernanda Montero, I repeated, testing the name. That's going to take some getting used to. You have a lifetime to adjust. He smiled. Our lifetime, together. 3 months later, I passed my final exams with honors, graduating top of my class despite everything. Felipe was there in the audience, pride radiating from him as I accepted my degree. That night, over dinner at home, I gave him a different kind of news. I'm pregnant, I said simply, watching his face. For a moment, he just stared. Then a smile broke across his face, transforming him from the controlled businessman to someone young and wondering. A baby? His hand found my still flat stomach. Our baby? Our baby, I confirmed. Are you happy? Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He pulled me into his lap. You've given me everything, Fernanda. Love, purpose, and now a family. You've made me human again. You were always human. You just forgot for a while. 6 months later, our daughter was born. We named her Sophia, after Felipe's mother, and the moment I held her, I understood completely why Felipe had fought so hard to protect me. This tiny, perfect being was worth anything. Worth compromise, worth complexity, worth building a life in the spaces between legal and necessary. Felipe was a devoted father, surprising me with his tenderness. He'd conduct business calls while walking her to sleep, take meetings from home so he could be present for feedings, gradually step back from the gray areas of his business to focus on the legitimate operations that could provide our daughter with a stable legacy. She's changed everything, he said one night as we watched her sleep. Made me want to be the man you both deserve. You already are. I leaned against him. Complicated, yes, but good where it counts. Looking back on that night at Enigma, on the bet that had changed my life, I marveled at the journey. I'd walked up to the scariest man in the room and stolen a kiss. And he'd stolen my heart in return, claiming me so completely that I'd never wanted to be free. We built a life together, messy, unconventional, but undeniably ours. He protected me. I challenged him. Together, we created something neither of us could have built alone. I was Fernanda Montero now, wife to a complicated man, mother to a beautiful daughter, and exactly where I'd always been meant to be, in his arms, in his world, in his heart, forever.